For anybody new to the channel, I am Scottish. I'm very proud of being Scottish. And one thing that made me really proud of being Scottish was identifying with Scottish characters in my favourite TV shows, specifically Thomas and Friends. And it may surprise you to know that there are a total of 6 Scottish engines in the Railway series and Thomas and Friends. So I thought, who better to rank them than a Scotsman? Before I get into it, I will say that these are my own personal opinions. Your list would probably differ from mine, and that's one thing that makes the Thomas fandom so unique. And let me know in the comments how you would rank these Scottish engines from Thomas and Friends. All I ask is that you be respectful, and above all, enjoy the video. Okay, let's dive in. Number 6, Neil. A one-off character from the Railway series book Very Old Engines, but boy did he make an impression. Neil was one of the oldest engines on the island of Sodor in the Railway series canon. He was actually there when Skarloey was loaded off the ships and brought to Sodor. A lot of people might not know that Neil was Scottish, but if you read the book, he's very heavily dialected in a Scottish slang. At least that was what the Reverend W. Awdry thought we Scots did speak like. According to Thomas Wiki, his personality is kind, gentle, and simple, and he was built at Neilson and Company's Hyde Park Works in Glasgow around 1861. And he's based on the Neilson 040 box tank engines. He's left his mark on many of the fandom, with a lot of us putting him into origin stories or fan fiction. The only reason that he's not higher up on the list is because he was a one-off character. I think if Reverend W. Awdry knew that there was potential with this character, he probably would have made stories about him. But the fans have definitely done their work in bringing Neil to life in their own special way. Number 5, Harvey. A Thomas and Friends original character that was introduced in season 6. You would have initially thought, based on Michelangelo's voice work for him, that he wasn't a Scottish engine. Turns out he was. Harvey is based on the Dubs crane engine, number 4101, which was nicknamed Dubsy. And once again, he was built in Glasgow, Scotland. Harvey was a character that, in his introduction in season 6, was pretty much kind of a background or recurring character, very much background character during the Hit era, and then wasn't seen again in the Nitrogen era. He came back in the Brenner era with his Scottish accent, thus confirming what we already knew. And for the rare times that Harvey was on screen, I just thought he was a delight to watch. Love his design, love the fact they gave him more screen time. A very good original character. Number 4, Duncan. The narrow gauge engine with one hell of an attitude. Well, Duncan is based off one of the Tallyclin engines, so not necessarily a Scottish engine by build. He's always been depicted, at least in the TV series, as Scottish, so he definitely counts in my book. He was a popular character in the Railway series, and it just grew and grew when he got into Thomas and Friends, the TV show. He's the least social of the Skarloey fleet, which is probably why I like him, being a bit antisocial myself. He's also rough-tempered and very opinionated, but that's why people love Duncan so much. He's flawed, and flawed characters build great stories. He was one of the only ones from the narrow gauge engine fleet in the Hit era that I would say didn't get completely shafted with his character. Yes, he was a bit more childlike, but the core personality traits of him were still there. It was just that the rough edges were a little bit more smoothed out for the audience of the time. They brought him back briefly in the Brenner era, and his design aside, the episodes that he was in just screamed OG Duncan. That's the way that you want Duncan to be. That's just who he is, but it's why people love him. Number 3, Emily. Yes, her basis was built in Doncaster, but much like with Duncan, she's been portrayed as a Scottish engine throughout her entire run in the franchise. And she has certainly made an impression on the fandom. She made an impression on me when I first saw her. They made a bigger impression on me when I saw her in the Hit era. While her personality choices have been interesting, to say the least, you definitely remember Emily. From her beautiful emerald green paint job to whatever personality that she iterates, and depending on which era of the franchise that you watch, she's always involved in a story. She was promoted in the Hit era to member of the Steam team, initially to add some diversity to the cast, but it was very much needed. She brought a fresh dynamic to them. As much as I would have loved Duck and Emily to have both been on that Steam team, if they weren't going to have Duck, Emily was a good choice to put in. She was a blank slate character, which meant they could have done anything that they wanted with her. And they did. They gave her that kind of bossy, know-it-all personality for the hit era. They tried their best to balance both personality traits with the Brenner era and, even to an extent, Blubber. But as the song says, there's no one quite like Emily. So you'll probably guess that Donald and Douglas, our Caledonian classics, are definitely my top 2 Scottish Thomas and Friends engines. But which one's number 2 and which one's number 1? So coming in at number 2 is Donald. If you've watched my classic era character ranking listing, you would know that Donald is just a little bit lower down in the rankings than Douglas in my eyes. Doesn't mean that I don't like Donald, because I do. I think he is certainly an interesting character. And I love his friendship with Duck. Donald and Duck just seem to have that camaraderie. Hey, Donald Duck, maybe that's why. But in all seriousness, Donald is a great character. He's had his share of ups and downs, but there's only one reason why his brother pipped him to the post. Because at number 1 is Douglas, for the reason that without Douglas, there would be no Oliver and Toad. Douglas was the stowaway out of the 2 engines that arrived on Sodor, when only one was expected. And because of that, Douglas knew what it was like to be safe from scrap, and knew that if he ever saw an engine in that same situation, he would automatically step up to the plate and find a way to save that engine, no matter the consequences to himself. He has that bit more grit and determination about him. I have no doubt Donald would step up to the plate if he was needed, but I think he would take more time to think about his actions rather than diving in head first, which I think Douglas would do. But it was so hard to separate these two in terms of a number 2 and number 1, because their dynamic as twin brothers, and especially Scottish twin brothers, is just a joy to watch. Donald and Douglas are fantastic characters. There's a reason why, from when they were first introduced in Wilbur Awdry's books, they ran right through to the end of Christopher Awdry's run. They were fan favourites, the writers liked them as well, questionable stories aside, and there was a charm to them. They had that cheeky, quirky personality. They bounced off each other so well, like twins do in real life. And having those twins being Scottish probably helped with another twin quirk that most twins do have. It gave them their own language that they could communicate with to each other, and the other engines would be like, what the hell are they talking about? Because they spoke Scottish. Proper broad Scottish that it would take a wizened ear and a quick tongue to be able to confront. And speaking of confrontation, when they are together, they could take on the entire world. They first arrived on Sodor and weren't afraid to put Gordon and Henry in their place because they were making fun of them. There's something about those 2 engines when they're together that no matter who you are, an engine, truck, coach, you know, don't mess with these 2 because they will rip you apart, like the Spiteful Brakeman. So let me know in the comments how you would rank the Scottish engines of Thomas and Friends. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on chucking.